Welcome back, everyone, to A Critical Content. I'm sitting here today with another one of our players at our table. We have Anthony, Tony, sitting with us today. How are you doing, good sir?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
Good. And so anyone who's watching this, don't be misled by his background. I thought that was curated, but that is, that's real.
It's Cave Johnson.
But it gave me Victor from Underworld vibes. I don't know why when I first saw it.
That's good old Cave Johnson of Portal fame. He turns on and everything, but I do not have that on because that would be way too loud. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, not a problem. So Tony, I have known the longest out of everyone at our table. We actually knew each other in high school.
That is fair, yeah.
So, when going back in time, when was the first time you actually played a TTRPG or something like it?
Well,
and what system was it?
Ooh, okay. This would definitely show. I've always kind of watched it. I've had some family and some some older cousins that would always be interested in it, and they'd be playing it, and I'd be too young. And I've been to conventions and things like that all through the years. I would probably say late middle school, early high school, and it would go through with the World of Darkness. Okay. And that was Hunter the Reckoning, the little subset of World of Darkness. That would probably be where I actually sunk my teeth in, so to speak, first in tabletop RPGs, but ever since then, after that, Dungeons and Dragons always held a place, Pathfinder's always held a place, sure. And that kind of just grew from there. Once I got to actually try it myself, there's no going back.
What edition did you play first in D&D?
I actually played 4th, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. And then that piggybacked to Pathfinder because everyone was like, you don't want to play that. You want to play Pathfinder. Yeah. And then 5th edition came out, and so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to hyperfixate on this and go from there.
I feel that Wizards of the Coast just did not listen to their fan base when it came to 4th edition. Or they tried something new and it just did not work out.
That's, I think, the better way to put it, because they don't want to rest on their laurels too much, but they also still like money. I mean, kind of bouncing back as of last year, this time last year when all of that happened with Wizards of the Coast, but either way.
Which we are extremely relieved for, because that's D&D 5e, the system that we use.
Yes, this would have been...
That's also when we created the game, that was one of the premises. I was like, hey, we're not using, aside from a system, the D20 system, which we can kind of change at any point. Everything is homebrew when it comes to the realm, the deities and everything, because we didn't know what was going to happen from
for sure
month to month.
And I think especially what we kind of provide in that aspect, that's a huge plus. Just because you just can't really expect anything. And between the story, the world, it's just, for some people, just having that big chunk of just lore of all new world building, that's one of the big aspects. That's one of the big draws. I mean, that's what turned me on to the project initially, is just a whole new world system that I didn't have to create, but I can be part of. So,
well, and having been a DM before, of the strains, the strains that come with that, building a world and everything, and that's why with our game, you guys you build the game as much as I do. I mean, I lay the brickwork, but
sure.
I lay the foundation of the house. You guys actually bring in the lumber and the paint and the nails and everything, and you build it.
Yeah.
Which, realistically, in the scope of Sarah, the world that we play in, you guys have been to 1%, maybe 2% of it.
It's
massive.
It was Tavern Forest, dip into some political intrigue, and then let's all go to an ashy city.
Yeah.
There you go.
it's always been my personal opinion, and people are fine to disagree. You may disagree or differ. I shouldn't say disagree, differ. That first mission sets one of two tones, or that this first major objective, sets the tone in one of two ways. Either you're introducing the world or you're introducing the story, because this is a brand new world that none of you have played in. It's not Faerun, it's not Waterdeep or something. I had to go with the previous option and be like, I have to let them know the scale and what kind of world they're in.
Oh yeah.
And the story will follow. And you guys are starting to pick that up, ish, just because I'll give you choices and we go from there.
Yeah.
So you started D&D 4E, dipped in the Pathfinder, which was 2nd edition at that point, and that's exactly what I did. And then we're at 5E. What about 5E do you like more than... I mean, there's multiple things, of course, compared to 4. But what is one major thing that you really enjoy that they changed or changed back to in 5E?
I would say my biggest, and I think the reason why I'm still drawn to it to this day, is the problem-solving aspect. They've opened up a lot more facets of the game, so they reward creativity and creative uses of spells or of really just anything. And by kind of taking the hood off of the hot rod, so to speak, you're giving it more room and more air to get into those engines, those creative engines. But especially for problem solving, that's probably my favorite thing, because like 4th, and same thing with like Pathfinder was still great, don't get me wrong, but it was just combat. It's like, hey, let's fight, everybody combat. Even like, what was it, even the wizards had like combat, or everyone had like combat magic, and that's kind of what it was. It was like strictly offensive, defensive, or healing, but that was it. Yes. Whereas with 5th edition, we have utility, and even then, and I think it also helps this day and age with the way D&D is played. Anything could be used offensively, or anything could have a utility use if you're creative enough about it.
Yes.
And I think that's just what always is the big draw. And that's what pulls anybody who's never even played the game before, is just like, it can literally be whatever you want. Even the spell itself can be however you ever want it to be. And if you can't get interested in that, then like, what's not to like when it comes to that? So
it's how invested in the game you get. I mean, you can say, okay, I cast magic missile, and then roll your damage. You're hitting your damage.
That's it. Yeah.
Your damage. Or you can say, like, I reach out my hand, and these tendrils of arcane like just sparking. One game I play, I say I Yu Yu Hakusho, like I finger gun with my Eldritch Blast. But it just depends on the flavor that you put on it, and I think that we have a lot of characters in our game.
Yes.
And I'm just saying, especially Odir does a wonderful job. But you all do great jobs, but he adds a lot of flavor to text.
Yeah.
To it.
And if that's one thing I will say, at least on our group, we definitely have a like motley crew across the board. Everybody kind of brings their own thing to the game, and I love it, especially for that reason. Like, we have creative levels that are across the board. We have some that are way more when it comes to the actual role play aspect of it. That's really good. And that's, it just works out for it. I love it, especially when it comes to the descriptions for everything.
Oh yeah. It's kind of shifting to our party. You play Felix Cogspin, our Artificer.
Yes.
And Gnome, am I right? If
Halfling.
Halfling.
How dare you?
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
How dare you?
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I spaced for a second for 2.5, but it was the Thanksgiving turkey. That's what did it. But what we did, what you did when you built Felix is you have a really cool component of your guy. Do you want to explain a little bit about Felix and his kind of
piggybacking off of what we mentioned before, with everything homebrew, or as much homebrew as we can. He is a very chronal aspect. I've mentioned it before with a lot of his stuff, and I think what was it? I had the title of it is a chronal warden. It was a subclass I've worked on previously, just kind of tinkered on my own part, and it's just always seemed really interesting from not only a playing aspect, but also a story aspect. Because what's one of the biggest MacGuffins in a world of Magic? Time.
Yes.
And so that's kind of that was always the pull. And other than just being a wizard that scries and gets lucky or gets the lucky feat and does that kind of thing, I wanted to be able to implement it in other ways, and also that flavor, like what we talked about before. Just the way it works with an artificer is just chef's kiss. So I think play style, especially once we start getting a little bit more up and we start getting a little bit of his crazier abilities. I know that'll get a little wild. Still trying to work out when that's going to be going with it, but yeah. The fact with the replacing dice rolls with the chronal anchors, and we're about to get up to the point where it'll start actually giving temp HP to people whenever I'm able to use them. And I don't want to give away some of the farther stuff ahead, but
sure,
it gets kind of timey. It's a little wobbly, like we said.
Explain that chronal anchor, because I know in the game, because I don't think we might have actually explained it in game. Explain chronal anchor for people watching.
I think we've really only kind of touched it a little bit, and that was on the wagon ride into town. But what he focuses on is potential magic, like potential energy. So obviously in the world there's magic everywhere. It's very midichlorian-esque. And what this does is not taps into the current well of available magics in the world, or arcana, so to speak. He taps into all of it. How much, one area could have more in the future or more in the past. And so it just has this wellspring that he's just really scratching the surface on that lets him pull from it. Same thing with when it comes to people, when he's using it on people or things of that nature. He's not using the current, he's using wherever that energy is most in their timeline, so to speak. He hasn't gotten to that point yet in terms of studies and mastery of it. That's why he can only mainly do it for like his gun. But the anchor particularly, whenever he does his ability, he's basically snapshotting that success or that fail from whoever it was, that energy that made that success happen. So then later on, we can adjust the timeline, so to speak, for an ally or an enemy to recreate that success or failure, to basically give them that energy that they needed to succeed or take it away to make it fail.
Which, realistically, I think that that element is being completely taken for granted and not understood. Because if you think about it, you are literally like, I think it's kind of arbitrary. Oh, he's doing a feat ability, which is fine. They don't know any better, but like, I'm literally sitting there and saying like, this dude is warping time, chance, and possibility, and then someone just rolled to hit. And
the way we've kind of played it off is like, it's stutter stops. Like, I think we've used it mostly for successes. Like, I'll save the D12, I'll save like a crit for Banner or somebody like that. Sure. I think we've used it like maybe once or twice when we had a crit fail. And the best way we explained it was it just kind of stutter stops and they slip up and trip, because who's to suspect, like, time skipping where they are or switching positions with a version of you that's failed.
Right.
And so it's kind of hard to go through. And I know, especially story-wise, like, Felix knows what he has, and so he tries to be as vague or as withheld when it comes to that with that kind of information. Because, especially nowadays, like, where we are in our world, there's so many new technologies, like, we have guns and things of that nature. And he doesn't want that cat out of the bag, because he doesn't know what a bunch of people using that energy will do. And so that's like when he was talking with O'Darren about it, he just kind of not necessarily plays it off, but tries to explain it as simply or as like in general terms as possible without getting people more notice to it, I would say.
Sure.
Because he knows how dangerous it could be, and he barely knows about it as it is. So.
Yeah, and that was going to be, and that's kind of a question that I've been not wanting to ask, and I'm actually going to ask it here. And you can either, if it spoils too much, fine, you don't have to answer. Or if it's something to be like, we'll talk about it later, like off the screen, that's fine. How did Felix realize that he is able to do this, manipulate time and possibility and chance?
I think part of it is going to be discussing with you, like off the side, because of course I have my own ideas, but I want to make it fit for everything else. I would think, based on his current situation with his family or with his father, he's always had a connection to magic. But his father, which we haven't really touched base too much on yet in the story, he's a clockmaker, and so single dad takes care of Felix, and so he's always tinkering, fixing clocks, doing thingamabobs. So he's stuck in this clock store. So that's what always has given him tools just to kind of tinker and mess around with. And I think one of the main things I had, at least in his backstory, his dad's been super supportive, and just trying to keep him interested in what he likes. But being shackled to that clock store, he's kind of tailored it to that. So I would say, at least for fans and people that are listening, I think it's just because that's the world that he was in. He was passionate about something, so he stayed focused on it, and he was able to find a way to pull that love of what his dad finds fascinating. And I think that's kind of the driving force behind it. Because of course, if you think something's really cool, but then if you changed it a little bit or did something because you knew your parent or someone you looked up to was liking this other way, getting it to where it's something that involves them too is just so much better, and it's something you can share with them. And I think that was kind of the drive. I think that'd be the best one without like screwing the pooch, so to speak, when it comes to going over any story beats. But that's what I would say.
Well, and we haven't made abundantly public player backgrounds and everything, because I'm very much one for audiences and players discovering it as you go.
Trickling it out. Yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely, I would say, at least for what I have planned, like what I have in mind with Felix, he's very close chess. I think if anything, Seven would probably know a little bit more than anybody else just from relations before meeting with the group. But even then, he doesn't really like to go out and talk about it.
Well, and I myself, like, just knowing the bit about your backstory and just that closeness with your father and everything, with Felix's father. I've also had like ideas about like where this energy or this ability came from, which we can definitely talk about.
For sure.
I love it. But yeah, it very much is, it's the nuclear problem. Once one person gets nukes, how many other people get nukes?
That is what it boils down to when it came to character concept for me, is you want the name, name, race, class, whatever, but then you want that like one sentence concept of him. And that's what it is you get the keys to the kingdom like that. It's like the Oppenheimer thing where you know how dangerous this is, but how much do you want to use it to let it start leaking out into the world? Or that's kind of also played off in the story that we've done so far, because everyone wants to be a group, everyone wants a name, and everyone some of us are cool with just being seen and known in the town and being popular like that. We're like, Felix does not want that attention. He does not want people starting to see this and looking into it more. And that's why I would even say too, that even goes back to like how I describe whenever he does his stuff. It is very not flashy. He doesn't really want it to be seen, or if it is, he wants it to look like other magic or his technology, which I think that's why it also falls back to looking more just like technology than nowadays with it. So,
well, I mean, I think the statement you say is just, I'll clock that, which is no different than somebody who just did a perception check, being like, all right, I'm going to clock that person. Great, cool. Saying I clocked that could mean a million things.
Yeah. And I think that works really well in terms of like the build or like the way I have it set up with him, because he just has he has his timepiece, which even then, like the way I had set up, if somebody tried to rob him or knocked him out and looked at it, it just looks like a clock. It looks like a fancy timepiece, nothing crazy to it. But then in conjunction with the gear that he has and his magical ability that sets it off, that's when it gets that spark, so to speak. So exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned Seven, who we interviewed Will Acton previously, playing our barbarian, our Warforged barbarian. So what, if much, backstory did you two develop? Because you guys came into the game kind of being the only knowing each other people. So what did that kind of meeting look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got the all clear from you, and we definitely liked the idea. Especially character-wise, like, I mean, even with Felix being out of home and journeying and everything, he still loves gizmos, he still loves gadgets, he loves all of that. And I think it was a perfect fit. That he would run into Seven, that he would run into Will's character. And I know with us kind of going back and forth, it's kind of hard when you have two people, like, Will's kind of the same way for me. He definitely puts a lot of work in his backstory, and I would say I wouldn't even know how much more he has more than what he's like mentioned to me. But that being said, going into it, we both were very close to chess. Obviously, for Will's case, Seven doesn't know. And so it was more on the lines of Will was really excited to share stuff, but it was like, but Seven won't really know, Seven doesn't know this. He is literally just walking into the world new. And I think that helps more on the same side of things, because Felix didn't really, any interaction Felix would have with Seven before we met the group was more just him studying him. I think that was just the best thing that we agreed on, is just him more like, yeah, okay, I'll follow you, I'll help you learn. But then Felix is an opportunist. He knows, like, okay, well, this big menacing thing will also protect me and keep me safe so I can get my stuff done. Sure. And I think that's kind of what we had agreed on. It was a pretty quick back and forth message. Okay. And I would say that's what it kind of boiled down to. But I know we were both, I mean, we still are. We're still excited to share as much as we can. And you know how it usually is. Like, we want to share stuff, but we don't want to do it outside of the game. And that's the same energy that we have with the entire group, which is awesome.
And I think just the way that people are like, oh, he's going to Dad for money or something like that. Yep. It's not so much that. I see it very much like, I think I mentioned it in Will's episode, very much like Full Metal Alchemist. Like, yeah, for sure. Like, he is the little brother that doesn't know, and yet he's huge. And then you're Elric, who is tiny and gets, but doesn't get offended because of his height. So
more gnome than halfling. But yeah, I think I've never, he hadn't crossed that line when it came to the height, at least in story. But I would say, I would definitely agree with that. Like, it's been to the point now where, he's looking out for him as a family member. And obviously with Beakley now too, that just kind of hammers it home. He's never had family other than his dad and then and his neighbors. So he's very protective of that. And with how, I don't want to say defenseless, but how new he is to everything and how he's relearning everything definitely adds that innocence to it, so to speak. So it's definitely something he's latching onto, both physically and mentally, I would say.
Aside from whatever programming or other stuff he picked up, a lot of it is influenced on this relationship that you two have built.
Yes.
Because what is okay, what is not okay. And I just think it's wonderful, your guys' interaction. I think Will plays, I don't want to say oblivious well, but there's a certain amount of naivete.
Yeah, he's spot on with it, and especially for a lot of this, like, I cannot state that enough. We literally had a brief line of messages before we started recording, like session 1, and then maybe 1 or 2 messages during session 1 or session 2, like after that. The rest of it is all off the cuff. It's literally just while we're recording back and forth. I think, it hits off really well when it comes to it, and I think we're both we're both nailing it when it comes to that. He has it down pat, and I think especially with the will interactions, I think that's also helping things too with it. So it's I would definitely agree. I definitely he has a very good naive way of going about things while still knowing what he's doing.
Yeah, and between your guys' journeys, it brought you, to meet the rest of the party. You then met Beakley and everything. Lendris, as you guys have recently discovered. Well, first off, I should say this. Why did you originally take Lendris's deal to do this wellness check, essentially?
The knowledge portion of it. Well, when she said she knows things, as well as, flashing a whole, mass of different stuff. Sure. That's options. That's opportunities. That's things that could help him in his situation and help his family, help his dad. And I think that, without giving too much, that's the reason why he's out in the world. That's everything. So if the sooner he can get that done, and the sooner he can get back to his dad, so that when that flash of opportunity hit, like I said, he's an opportunist. He jumped on it, regardless of what everyone else said. I even think that he was the first person who's like, "Yep, okay, let's do it, let's go." Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's what it is. Now, if it actually is or not, that's for us to find out. But yeah, no, the just the mere chance of an opportunity for it, I think that's what struck him the hardest.
Do you think that Felix's hope has grown, maintained, diminished in the light of finding out that Lendris is a dragon of sorts, particularly a song dragon, which is from previous editions, and I really liked it, so I brought it in. But
I think at the point, no matter what, his hopes are high, and he's kind of at the point where he's not going to be thinking, I don't want to say rationally, I think he's going to be looking everything with rose-colored glasses. I think he's met these people. They're all semi-like-minded in terms of, what we have in right now going back. I'm not sure how he's going to react based on whatever we find out, or if it's bad news, we're going to have to kind of wait and see if he's going to think it's fruitful enough to stay with these people. That's where it's kind of going to be hitting home, I would say, with that. But I don't think it's really hit on him yet. I think he's just thinking this massive power, that whatever has caused this should be strong enough to make a change or to make a difference. And if he can take that, that potential energy or whatever it may be, and use that to get his needs met or completed or finished, so to speak. I think as long as he finds that, that's all he's trying to do. So we'll see if that blows up in his face or what. So that's what I would have to say, because we haven't really found anything, and I think that kind of touches back to what we mentioned before. I think he hopes that somewhere else in this land is someone else that's using the same magic or harnessing this. And I think that could be partially maybe his hope is he finds somebody that knows it or does it better. And so he could just be like, hey, help me.
Sure.
But I think realistically, he's just trying to find something that he thinks is strong or has a lot of power, arcane or physical, so he can try and, I don't want to say manipulate, but use it. So
sure. Well, there's the character's main drive, and then there's everything underneath that to get to that point. So, I don't want to say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but in order to, get to your destination, there has to be a road. Somebody has to pave it.
Yes.
And it may not be clean. It may not even be. It may be clean. But the way that you get there depends on that person's drive, especially when it comes to a parent-child relationship, And
I think that's the biggest motivator, and definitely agreeing with you on that. I don't have anything labeled in terms of morality for him. I don't want to say he's a bad guy. He's not a bad guy. But I think when it's coming through on the lines of what he would do for his dad, sure. There's a lot of room to test his morality, I would say. And especially when it comes to that, you know, you never can tell. So.
Well, and I would say that we kind of run with a generally morally ambiguous group. Aside from, yes. I would say Banner, who is pretty, I don't want to say clear cut, but he has his convictions, and they lend more to the good side. Everyone yes. else, like, it kind of feels like they could, if they really wanted to, swing to the dark side. I think
we're like one or two bad decisions away.
Sith Empire for life.
There you go. I think. Hey, we planned Star Wars shirts. I got Nub.
Hey, my beautiful Millennium Falcon back here. But
love it. But I think our team is. We are easily on that line where like one or two bad decisions, or just, you know, you make. I think if it was like Ren, O'Darren, and Seven mad at the same time, I think we just veer off, and we I don't think we'd be going back. Like, I think if one or two of us is fine, but I think if you got those three, or even, you know, oh man, I don't know. But I think that's the point with it. I think like we're all enough kind of morally gray, or at least on the lighter side of that gray, that a couple bad decisions or a couple bad turn of events, man. I don't know.
And I don't even think it'd be in pursuit of power. I think it would have to be a purely emotional, gut-wrenching reaction is what would have to happen. Because I really don't. I don't think O'Darren or Seven or even Ren.
Specifically O'Darren too. Like, that's what I'm saying. If we ever saw, what was it? Well, we've seen fall, and we've seen spring, right? We haven't seen summer, and I thought we talked about winter, so I don't even know what those are. But yeah, O'Darren's been so far the bright, chipper of us. Banner has been the rock fast, steady for us. And then, you know, Seven can kind of go, I would say he's the wild card. Don't tell him.
Sure.
Don't release this to Will, so he gets this right now.
Well, I don't know. It could be, for all we know, Seven could be driving the wheel at some time, so it could be Will.
You're right.
The surface has literally just been scratched on that.
Yeah, for sure. And then it feeds off of that with Beakley too, and I think he's getting too many bad lessons from Seven.
He slaughtered a man.
Beakley killed a guy. Beakley killed a guy, like cold blood, flat out, and we all clapped. Oh man.
Well, you have to imagine in Critical Role when because I mean they had season 1.
They had Trinket.
They had Trinket before the streaming happened, because they had the home game and then they went in. You have to imagine that there was probably an episode or something where like Trinket tore a man apart.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you guys got an owl bear now.
Yeah,
so like that's your
fault. That's your fault.
You know what? There were things that could have happened, and there's things that did happen, and they happened. So.
You gave us a baby or a pup. What is it? I don't even know what. A cub.
Owlbear cub. Technically. But so it's just really exciting to see you. I think that you guys have gotten a pretty decent lay of the land. The whole reason with Volkstad is I had to kind of introduce like the political strata of the world, and I give opportunities. You know, you can choose to do one thing or choose to do another. That was literally almost an entire episode for you guys, was deciding what to do.
Oh boy! So, and I think that plays off. I know all of us really want to lock into something, and I think with all of us are more worried that everyone else is on board with the same thing. And thankfully, I even think since session 1, like you can see that growth when it comes to everyone kind of fitting in or feeling into their spot that they're comfortable with in the party.
Right.
And I think now that we're finally starting to hit that mark and hitting that groove, we're hitting those roleplay beats and starting to go a little bit better, so we don't just have like 2 weeks of store sessions or buying colorful flowers. But I love that too. I mean, everybody cares so much about their character and about the group, and that plays off with it. You know, that's what I definitely love. That's probably one of my favorite things so far.
Well, and in this campaign, there is because I go not only based on set plot points, but I like, and that was one of the questions I asked when I talked to you guys before we even started. You know, we have things where character backstories influence, where they don't influence the main plot line, but there's plenty of opportunity for you guys to follow and do whatever you want. Because I'm one that I can play characters with absolutely no needing of backstory satisfaction. And I've played other characters where, like, this is the entirety of the character.
The prophecy is fulfilled. Yeah.
I
hear that.
But it's, I also like, you know, I do like those standalones. I like when things weave into one another. And the beauty of homebrew is that you can do that. I'm not locked into a book or anything like that, which I like modules, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about, and I'm sure you know, something about writing your own that if you need to, you can change the MacGuffin on the fly because you have to. Be like, oh, if I'm doing a module, it's like, oh, they killed the one person they needed. Crap. Well, in the homebrew, it's like there's 6 more of them just waiting to be.
They're just waiting back there. They're waiting back there. Yeah, that's my biggest strength or my biggest pro over modules. Modules are great if you are teaching people basics, or if you don't have a lot of time on your hands, or even for new DMs. I recommend for people if you're starting out, get a module. It helps. It gives you everything you need. And then once you've done that enough times and know that flow and know how hard they're going to ruin your plans, then you start doing that homebrew. Because there's nothing like it, especially just the fact that you it's almost more of a game for the DM. Yeah, that's the same thing we've talked about before. Like during the start of this, I'm always a forever DM, and it's great on that side of things because you have to go against what they're doing. It's not trying to kill them, but you have to roll with the punches. Yeah. And love it. I love it to death for it, and I would definitely agree, especially when it comes to that. And I know we've tried to ruin your plans a lot.
Well, and there have been times where I'm not going to say they're ruined, but when you guys defeated that like wrath entity, that you were directly pointed to that guy. I'm going to be completely honest. I thought you were going to explore the city first before just charging into a deep dark hole.
We were just like, nope, let's go.
Because, like, realistically, that guy was, I don't even care. That guy was controlling all the other little sections throughout the city. So whenever, like, I said that you defeated, you see, like, throughout the city. Yeah. That's, you know, and that's fun, though, because you played your game the way you guys wanted to play. And you got pinpointed towards something. Fantastic. And you did something with it. Wonderful. Am I mad about it? No. I mean, it's no love lost because it's just encounters that, okay, maybe I'll use them somewhere else later on down the line.
That's all you can do in those situations. Like, yeah, for sure.
I don't like pigeonholing players, but I mean, sometimes there's certain things that have to happen.
For story, for certain story beats, or if you're just wanting this one little special thing to go off, and as long as it's not too railroady, you know, by all means, like, hey, you poison the players, they pass out, or like they got drugged, and then they wake up and they're behind bars, or they're all tied together, you know, like that kind of thing. That's, you know, I gotcha. I did kind of think that it was really easy, that we were like, let's go back to that tower, and just zipped right back over, got it cleared. Yeah. So, I mean, and I will say, I do love the fact, for someone that has been a forever DM, I thought I would be the note taker. O'Darren has definitely claimed that to no end. Mm-hmm. He is all in all it. But I am still proud of the fact that I called that dragon point blank to you multiple times.
Yeah.
I just smell a dragon. I knew it.
Well, I think it's
proud
hard
of your Stonewall. I'm proud of your Stonewall. You didn't even flinch. For the people for recording, I just stared straight at him when I said it. Just deadbeat. No emotion, because I was waiting to see something on his face. He sent it right back like a mirror. I was like, dang it. I've gotten people before,
and I think that's the hardest part when you are a forever DM, when you do get to play, is turning off your DM brain.
Yes.
It's turning off okay, if like there's this puzzle going on, we have tried this. That means if I were the DM, I would do this.
I would do it this way.
Yeah. Or
which is fun.
This is the setting. We're in a rock setting. There's probably going to be some sort of like golem or something like that.
For sure.
But so I do appreciate you sitting with me. There is one thing y'all don't know about Tony, is that he does gaming for charity.
Yes.
Recently, why don't you tell everybody what you do annually? Correct?
Yes, this was. We actually just finished it up at the start of November. That was. We are a part of the Extra Life charity, where it helps local children's hospitals. Well, so for us, St. John's Children's Hospital here in Springfield, Illinois, and every year, me and we have a variety of people, but we have a group of at least 4 that have been doing it now. Like I said, this was our 10th year, but I did it by myself a couple years before that too, where we stream for 24, but it's always daylight savings time, so it's 25 hours, and we try to raise as much money as we can for St. John's Children's Hospital. The stream itself already ended, but we're still actually going to be taking donations from now up until the end of the year. And I think we're also going to be doing another 12-hour stream at some point coming up. Because I was going to do a one-shot on the stream, but we had a ton of fun doing a couple other games, and so we just decided to skip it for a secondary stream. But it's been great. I think this year we're already at, I think we're over 2,000. We raised over 2,000 at the event, and we're still getting more donations in, which is fantastic. Oh yeah, it's great. We've I think our biggest year was right before COVID started. We had the Wyndham donated us a conference room. We had a bunch of the PR people from St. John's come out. We even had a family with their son who beat leukemia. He played with us for about 3 hours on stream. We absolutely loved them so much. Nothing but love for St. John's Children's Hospital, and anything that we can do to help them out, they're always a delight. So we always do whatever we can this time of year, but it's absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful. And for all those that say that gaming doesn't do anything for everyone, well, here it is. It does.
Yeah.
So, suck it up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really great. I know. I always told my wife initially it was just an excuse to get to see my friends at least one time a year, get to play, and especially now, like, I don't want to make it seem like, these guys are bending over backwards to do this. Like, it's still, especially now we all have kids, throughout the year, you know what I'm talking about. So the fact that one day a year we get 24 hours to where we all just get to hang out, meet back up, and just play what we love from that past year, and just be able to hang out and record.
Wonderful.
It is a delight. Like, that alone is worth it, but then we're also making money for St. John's. So like, it's just icing on the cake. But it is also 24 hours staying awake. Oh my gosh, like this week this year I was awake for 35 hours because I also had to work and drop off my kids and set up, and so people are like, oh yeah, 24 hours. I'm like, it's actually like 35, like with like maybe it's a 2-hour nap.
It's 2 days pretty much.
But I'm used to it. I got kids. Used to it.
I feel you. But thank you again so much, Tony. We appreciate you. And for everyone listening, for everyone watching, we invite you to come look at our previous content. We have our Springfield One-Shots, where we speak to locally owned and operated businesses here in Springfield, Illinois. Got to support our mom and pop shops. We have our campaigns, and then we have our critical content like this, where we interview not only our players, but we've interviewed people from TikTok. We've done YouTube. A man who wrote a musical about D&D, which is ongoing with over 200 NPCs from the spreadsheet he showed me.
200 NPCs? Oh
He adds characters and he's building a universe, and it's beautiful.
That's
Anyway,
a good way to do it.
thank you so much, Tony. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, 5 to Places.